Oh, g'day. Welcome to In the Back of My Head podcast 44. Episode 44. We're creeping up to episode 50. Not that means anything, but it's a number. It's a bigger number than the number that I'm on. Number goes up. Feel good. Hey, how are you? What's going on? How are you? What's going on in your life? Have you discovered any fancy new products in the grocery section? You know, have you found any new snacks? Be they healthy or otherwise? I'm trying to think if I've tried anything fun. I remember trying those those Cornados by Doritos, or is it CC's? Can't remember. One of them, someone made corn chips in the shape of a tornado, called them Cornados. Do you think that started with the product, or do you think it started with the name? I've always liked the idea of starting a business based solely on the name. You're sitting around having a chat with your boys or girls or whoever's and chatting about bullshit over some beers, and you come up with a great pun for a cafe. And you're like, well, fuck, I never wanted to start a cafe, but now I have to start a cafe, because if I don't use that, someone else is going to use that. It's got to be done. I hope that that's happened at some stage. The number of people who start cafes, who should not start cafes, my God. I've worked in hospitality. Not very. I think I've done full time. I have worked full time at one point. But let me tell you, it's rare for me. Hey, new mic, by the way. Hope it sounds better. Hope the audio is working. Otherwise, you'll see a second version of this with me pissed off fighting with my tools. I've already started fighting with my tools today, and it's frustrating me. But anyway, I worked in hospitality for 10 years and worked for some people who just should not be running cafes. I think people think it's whimsical, as I do as well. But I guess because I've been in it and I know that it's fucked. I know it's a terrible idea to open a cafe, or open a venue, or open up anything, to be in hospitality. Terrible idea. But I know that, and so I'm hoping that if I ever go into it, if I ever do it, I'll be prepared for that. It's like having a child. It's really it's your entire life. It's your entire life, and you can't really expect a return on investment. I've worked for some people who have gotten a return on investment, who have sold their cafe or sold their franchise, or at least on the pathway to doing so. It's been gross. I got to fix that. And lucky them, you know. But so many people who get into hospo, probably because they think they're business minded, but then they're not hospo minded, not service minded. And then the ones who are service minded are not business minded. Now I'm worried about that because I feel like that's probably going to be me. That is me as a musician, as an artist. I am not business minded. I know how to send a mean email, but that's about the extent of it. Speaking of businesses, speaking of hospitality. Hey, what is this, a podcast? This is In the Back of My Head podcast. I know I already said the episode, but this is my weekly creative journal. When I open my mouth, I talk some shit into a camera, into a little microphone. I have a coffee, and I just talk about whatever's on my mind. And hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you get something out of it. I did see some people are saying on the YouTubes that content, there's always shifts, there's always, I was gonna say valleys and troughs. There's always peaks and valleys of levels of production. Let's fix this, levels of production. And you see it in music as well, you know, when things get really overly produced, when the dominant sound is really overly produced. like pop music, then usually there's a response of more lo-fi, more grungy, more raw sound. And I think you're seeing the same in YouTube. And just in general content of like, things get really, really produced, like the Mr. Beasts of the world, and then people get sick of that, and they move on to more chill, raw, unedited content. That works for this guy. That works very well for this guy. Speaking of hospitality, I'm pissed off. I've been angry for a while about this, as all musicians are, about venues. Not all venues. No, I'm not going to do that. Not all venues. But working with venues is a nightmare. Maybe more so than working with artists, I'm not sure. They constantly, because I book artists and I work with venues. And I see it as we're all in this together. We are booking a show, we are all in this together. At this point, at this level of the industry and in this part, this intention of the industry. So like if you're going and playing music at Crown Casino, I think that's a different beast. If you're DJing at a popular club, that's a different beast. These are different worlds. But the world of like just bands playing in venues, in pubs, in live music rooms, in bars, that has an intention of like really honoring the art. This is gonna be a bit wank. The intention is to honor the art. How many venues, I'm talking about venues that I work with that really talk about being there for the music. They exist for the music. They want to promote the music. They want to be part of the scene. They want to be part of the culture. And then they fuck around. And it frustrates me to no end. Because hospitality fucking sucks and the music industry sucks. Both of these suck. In terms of like profitability, in terms of making money, and especially now, and especially they're worse now, worse than they have ever been, for sure. Based on what I've heard and what I've read. Obviously, I've only been in it for so many years, but I've had a lot of older friends. And I mean older friends as in people who have been working in the industry for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. My own parents spent time playing live music in Melbourne. And I have worked in hospitality for a long time, and I've seen the books of bigger venues. And I know venues that are like just are there for the music or they're trying to do something with a bit more soul. There's fuck all money. There's fuck all money. There are venues that are making cash. I'm sure of that. But it's not like they're fucking raking it in. They're not, It's not a profitable business in comparison to so many others. There are bigger venues that I wish would pay more. But then there are smaller venues that I'm shocked that they pay at all. And I've had people come down, I've had people like go to bat for me. Too small, in conversation. Just say to me like, man, that's all that small venue's paying you? That's bullshit. You know they're making fucking money. They gotta pay you better. And I say, no. I know that they are not making any money. It's just a super unprofitable business. Especially in like the inner city, inner suburbs, where rent's fucking crazy. And then post-pandemic, people are drinking less. People have way less fucking money. So the reason, all this being said, is I'm pissed off though at putting that on the artists. at venues making that the artist's problem just as much as it is the venue's problem. Because the artist is already broke, assumably. The artist is already... It almost has this feeling almost of like, oh, you should just be happy to play. You should just be happy to have a place to play at all. Play for the exposure kind of shit. But it's our gigs that we're putting on. You know, there's very few venues that actually book gigs, that book lineups and stuff like that, right? You put on your own event, or you get a crew, such as mine, to put on your event. And then we just have to accept that, yeah, there's no money in it, which we're not, obviously, I don't know any artists who are in it for the money at this level, because we're all just hobbyists for the most part, really just trying to have fun, write our tunes, play our tunes, have a good time. But if you're running a hospitality venue with the intention of being like, we are here for the arts, then maybe you have some understanding that this is a terrible business. And then we're in it together. And that we're in it together. And that you're just gonna have to take the hit. Which sucks. But like that's not, as I said, people are drinking less, which unfortunately the business model for venues and for artists really is that like our cash relies on drinking. It's hard to charge a lot for tickets. People don't really want to spend more than like $20 on a small show, on a group of bands, which is fuck all money, realistically. But it's also not fuck all money. That's the other. I feel like there's just like these conflicting arguments constantly that I hear from people who, I read articles from venues and then I talk to people, friends and what have you, and musicians and what have you, of like, money is tight. There was an article, I think it was in like the fucking Age or the Herald or some shit, I don't know, it was a legend copy and pasted it in the comment section so we didn't have to get through the fucking paywall, talking about no one's drinking anymore, and these businesses rely on drinking. And no one's, people don't want to spend more on ticket prices, which I totally understand. And so this is my issue, is that like a venue just took a lot of cash from the takings for a show recently. And it's not the first time. I dealt with another venue, very similar vibe. It's usually more old school venues that do this. Though obviously other new school venues have their own issues, like I will name Laundry Bar can go fuck themselves. I hate their business model in terms of like, you get the people to say which artist they're there to see on the door, and then you get paid, and it feels grubby. It feels grubby. It's also a dark and kind of dingy vibe. Can't fuck with it. But this venue took an amount of money off every single ticket for the room hire, plus we had to pay for our own sound person, and there's other expenses. And I understand that there are expenses to running venues, obviously. But then that's where you're making money off the booze. The band has brought this many people, and then they are going to drink, hopefully. And I guess that's the issue, is that like if people are not drinking, you have to make up that money somewhere. And I think taking it from the band is grubby as fuck. It feels like you're punishing the band. I don't know, I don't think anyone's doing it maliciously. I think people are, obviously, whenever this kind of shit happens, It's the same as like, to me, it's like the same as like a small business owner who thinks their staff are always lying to them. So like, I'm sorry, I can't come in today. Oh, well, I need to see a doctor's certificate. Otherwise, I'm not paying you your sick pay. It's like, I've got a cold, mate. I need a doctor's certificate. I'm gonna call them up and they're gonna go say, hey, what's wrong? I say, I've got a cold. Oh, cool, here's a doctor's certificate. Wasted the doctor's time. Trust your fucking staff. I understand, however, that there's a rationality in your head of like, oh, the world is difficult and people are trying to screw me and I gotta fucking sort my shit out and I gotta make sure I get mine. And I hate that. It's just the simple of just like, show people respect and you get respect back. And if you treat people with a lack of respect, then you will receive no respect. And I feel this with venues. I feel this, there's wordings in the worksheets that we get, you know, of very accusatory. I don't know how they mean it, but to us it just reads, hey, we're gonna take some of your money, and if you even fucking scratch a single microphone, you're out, you're never playing here again. We're not gonna give you a goddamn dime until you sign off all these. And I get it, because I'm sure bands have been shit in the past, but to punish musicians that are playing in your venues because business is bad feels grubby, because we are suffering as well. We're in it as well. We're making no fucking money. It's a fool's errand trying to make cash as a musician. It's already hard to get people to shows. It's very hard to make money. And I just see that as we're all in this together, are we not? And so that's another thing that really frustrates the fuck out of me. I know this is just a big rant, but it's been coming for a while. Certain venues I fucking adore. I'll shout out the Retreat. I love the Retreat. Those guys are fucking legends. Or shout out to Radio Bar. Guys are supportive as fuck. An example of a business I know is not, you know, they don't make shitloads of cash. But they let us do what we want, and it feels like a team effort, you know? I'm sick of venues not promoting their shit. Of not promoting shows that are coming up. These venues that are like, yeah. If it's a small operation, then I don't really give too much of a shit. But these bigger venues that are demanding a lot more, are taking a lot more money, but then also don't promote the shows at all, or maybe a story on the day. Oh, God bless you. A story on the fucking day. Go fuck yourself. It's a frustrating industry, these two industries colliding, the hospitality industry and the music industry. Just two very unprofitable businesses. I know a lot of people who are just scattered or just doing it for fun and so don't want to put in that work to promote shows and stuff like that. In bands, I mean, and that's also cool, I get that. So it would be so frustrating to run a venue. I don't feel like punishing the artists is the fucking way to go. It's just about how it feels. I think it's about how it feels to artists, especially. It feels grubby. I think that's all I got. I feel like there's more I want to say on this. I feel like but. All right, I had a little bit more to say. Because watching some of that back and jumping around a lot, and thinking about, I think I have some insight, some small insight from some personal experience and talking to a lot of people within the industry that I work in. And so I have some understanding of kind of the different factors that are at play from the audience perspective to the artist perspective to the venue perspective. And for all of them, right now sucks. And not to take away either from like the good times, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this shit, you know? Like everyone I know that I'm working with and myself doing this is like, this is so much fun. And there are amazing venues that we're working with, and it's really good. Surprisingly, like it's really, really good, you know? But it just got me, it kind of got me thinking, and this is, I guess, a response, well, both to working with certain venues recently, but also, yeah, like these fucking articles that I read that want to place blame on someone. They want to place blame on someone. Someone visible, someone that we actually can point a finger to right now and say, you did this, this is your fault. Which I understand. I feel like we all do it all the time because it's harder to actually deal with the fact that this is a huge issue across many factors. And in this particular case, venues are not making enough money. That makes sense. That means they're punishing the bands. The bands make less money because the venues take bigger bloody venue hires, or they don't pay sound people, yada, yada, yada. There's not much cash to throw around, so the bands don't make any money. And they complain, and the band says, oh, well, we can't charge more for tickets because people won't come. And you're like, oh, well, maybe it's the audience fault because they don't drink as much anymore, because they don't pay for tickets, because they say $20 for a ticket, that is the peak. That is as much as I'll spend on a local band. But then the people don't have any cash. Like, I know from my mates that the idea of going out even once a week drinking, like drinking enough to make it a viable business for the venue, is a lot of fucking cash. If I'm to do that, I am basically financially ruined if I drink at a venue consistently every single week. And that's one night a week. Imagine if you want to go out and drink a couple of nights a week. And also, what if you just don't want to drink at a goddamn venue? What if you don't want to drink? What if you want to go to a show and don't drink? Well, then the venue doesn't make any money, so the artist doesn't make any money, so no one makes any fucking money. It's gross that it's tied to alcohol, but it is. How do you change that? And then how do you give people more money? Well, there's a cost of living crisis, and how do you change that? I don't know. Do we need to tax the rich? Do we need to start a revolution? Do we need to, you know, is there? I just feel like there are bigger forces at play that trickle down to everything. That's the real trickle down economics. It's no one's got any cash, and that's just hurting all of us, and we're all pointing the finger at everyone else. I feel like it's the same problem when you see an article pop up like, oh, people don't want to work anymore. Like, is that the problem? Is that the problem, or do people not want to work for the wage slaves? Do people realize during COVID that they don't want to do a shit job for $30 an hour, Australian? Because it's not worth their fucking time. Because they're poor anyway. They make no money anyway. Like $30 is just not a lot of cash. And then it's like, well, I would rather just have some more time. I'm still gonna be basically broke either way. I'm still not gonna buy a house either way. Maybe the issues are bigger, more systemic. But that's a bigger question. That's harder to answer. That's harder to figure out. So yeah, let's point our finger at somebody else. We're all in it together. We're all at the bottom, fighting over little crumbs and pointing fingers at each other and saying, you're the fucking bastard. You're the bastard that did this. Nah, man, we're all fucked. Let's all be fucked together. And then we can maybe look at what are some bigger issues that we can tackle that will trickle down and sort some shit out. All right, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts today. That's In the Back of My Head podcast. I hope that made sense. I might have stuck my foot in it. Who's to say? If you liked this, leave a comment below on YouTube, please. Like, comment, subscribe, all that bullshit. And that's it. If you're enjoying my little rambles, the little rants, the other things that I do, I've got music coming next week. Stay tuned for that. If you like all that shit, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You don't get anything, but you've helped me out.